Welcome back, viewers. Dave Epstein here from the Post-Pollock firm. Today's topic is why your paranoia is justified. We're going to watch a video, and I'll comment on it, the legalities, or at least the legalities that I know, which talks about a website that allows you to spy on people using cameras everywhere, including your own cameras. Let this young man explain. It's a very interesting video.
Tell you about a website that I don't... Let me just show you. Okay, I want to tell you about a site that I'm not sure should exist. Right now, this camera is streaming on a site called Insecam. A site that compiles internet-connected cameras from all over the world that either don't have a password or where the owner hasn't changed the default password on the camera. I want to understand, how does this work? What does all this mean for the privacy of the people that live here? And could I maybe get this camera turned off? I first heard about Insecam not on the internet, but in a book. In Virtual Mass, Antoine Martin compiled screenshots of Christian Mass live streams during the COVID-19 pandemic, all of which he found on Insecam.org. When I went to see the site for myself, I was shocked. Most of these streams felt relatively harmless, and some felt intentionally public. So dog owners could check in on their pets at daycare, and surfers could check the waves before heading to the beach. Tennis players could check how busy the courts were. But others felt like watching something you shouldn't be allowed to see. Offices, back rooms, even inside homes. These feeds are organized by city, country, time zone, type of place, and camera manufacturer. And after all of those tabs, all the way on the right, there's an FAQ section. In it, the site's administrator states that they only feature feeds from network surveillance security cameras. So what does that mean? These video feeds all come from IP cameras, like this. IP cameras are different from other kinds of security cameras because an IP camera's feed can be transmitted over the internet so that you can conveniently view it on a computer or a phone as long as you have an internet connection. But that convenience can be exploited because if you don't set up a password on a new IP camera, that live feed isn't just accessible to you, but to anyone who scrapes the internet for unprotected cameras. Anyone can do that with scanners like ZMAP, an open source tool that can scan the entire public internet for open camera feeds in less than an hour. A site like Insecam does this kind of scan continuously, and it does it for multiple different internet protocols to catch multiple different kinds of IP cameras. This, Insecam's FAQ section argues, isn't hacking because it's accessing something that doesn't have password protection in the first place, less like breaking into a house and more like peeping into windows that were already open. The FAQ
Well, folks, it is illegal to peep into people's windows. And I don't know if I like it to peeping in the windows. In some instances, I think it's more like saying, oh, the door to the house was open, so I figured I could walk right in. But regardless, this is creepy and unnerving, so watch. And what we've learned already is protect your device with a password. And be wary anywhere you go that you could be on camera, which is true nowadays.
One other point, too, that if you see your camera on the site and you want it taken down, all you have to do is send the site administrator an email, and they'll remove it. But they urge you to remember it'll still technically be available to anyone on the internet who uses a security scanner, and that the only way to really make it private is to set up a password. Passwords, of course, are a whole nother story. You can have a good password, but if it's for a website that has bad security, your information can still fall into the hands of data brokers. Making videos for this channel, I'm constantly looking up other people's names and information, and it makes me very aware of all of the stuff that's there about me. Oh geez. That's where the sponsor of this video, Aura, can help. It's a service that identifies data brokers selling your information and submits opt-out requests for you. If you try out Aura for a few weeks, you will actually stop seeing your information on sites like this. They're continuously monitoring for this stuff. They also offer up to $5 million in identity theft protection, and the Aura app has a VPN with over 100 virtual locations. It's a whole bunch of great features bundled into one. You can go to my link at aura.com/Christoph to try 14 days for free. It's not always easy to keep keep yourself safe on the internet, but fortunately, Aura can do a lot of this heavy lifting for you. Okay, that's it. Let's get back to Insecam. This didn't just feel like a website.
Okay, folks, so you gave you the name of a service that will help you out. But it's obviously almost impossible for the average person to be as vigilant as they say here, so it might be better to use a service. Obviously, you can protect your privacy only up to an extent. Your identity can be hacked. I know many people, many relatives, who have had their identity stolen, and then now their image, their cameras are being hijacked. The idea that somebody can get on your webcam or your camera that you look into when you do a webcast or record yourself on the web is kind of scary, but it's out there. And I assure you, most of the people using this are not using it for good purposes.
It felt like a statement, exposing the risks of poor security by putting the consequences on display for anyone to see. I sent an email to that address asking for an interview and waited to hear back. In the meantime, I did a quick domain information search and saw that the site is registered in Russia and that it's been around since at least 2014. I wanted to see what people said about it back then. So it looks like September 2014 was the first time this was really covered by the Daily Mail. They wrote about how home hackers can spy on you and your children with your webcam. It's pretty scary. And then 2 weeks later, there's an Estonian newspaper that wrote, "See if your security camera footage is visible on the internet." And then in a little over a month, Insecam's in headlines all over the world.
There is a news site that's getting a lot of attention. It's a bit creepy.
Russians may be spying on you through them. There's a website that's called Insecam.
Has hacked nearly 5,000 cameras in the U.S. alone.
You know the default password, they know the default password, and simply logging in like they were you.
By late November 2014, UK officials were urging Russian authorities to take down the site. On the Internet Archive Wayback Machine, you can see a snapshot of what happened next. The administrator took all of the cameras offline and replaced them with this. Programmer is looking for a good remote job. But within a week, the cameras were back online, with one notable change. On the front page, Insecam's administrator claims that they now filtered out all cameras that invaded anyone's private life. And, more than 10 years later, the site's still online. But even if the most invasive cameras were actually filtered out, the ones I saw on Insecam still felt like they could be an invasion of privacy. I started to wonder if there were hundreds, maybe thousands of cameras on Insecam today, and Insecam had been around for over 10 years, how many people's lives had been streamed like live TV, totally unaware that they were being watched. So I went looking for answers in every academic paper that mentioned the word Insecam. In one paper from 2018, a team of researchers scraped the history records of all IP cameras that ever streamed on Insecam. And they estimated that over 500,000 camera feeds had been on Insecam since it launched, with an average of 215 new cameras added every day. So that's how many cameras were being watched, but what about how many people were watching? That's when another study from Japan caught my eye. Researchers set up IP cameras without passwords as honeypots, essentially bait designed to attract attackers to learn about their behavior. And they measured how many people were watching. On the third day that one of these unsecured cameras was running, Insecam posted it, and traffic skyrocketed. The researchers argued that a large amount of cyber peeping occurs because of the Insecam website, basically suggesting that this site creates an outlet for an audience that wouldn't otherwise be watching this stuff. I still wanted to get a better idea of how big a deal all of this really was. Obviously, being watched without your consent is a big deal in and of itself, but I wanted to see what a cybersecurity expert might make of all of this. So I went looking for one, and I got in touch with Emmanuel Vassilimanolakis, an associate professor.
So, folks, we see what's going on with this, and I would strongly recommend you watch this video and do a tiny bit of research on it. Here's the problem we all have. I have it. How sophisticated are we with internet technology, with password technology, internet security. People are getting hacked. They're having their identity stolen. Things are happening every day. And there are thieves out there who are sophisticated. And the problem is most of them are nowhere near under the jurisdiction of the United States law enforcement authorities. We have the compounding problem of people who can use algorithms and such to compound all this information, add that security camera stuff they have, and collect even more data about you than they already have. You're already getting, Google is gathering data. Everybody is gathering data about you. The question is, do they gather enough? And is it enough that, you go on sale, your information, whether for marketing purposes or really more nefarious purposes, to go rip you off? And that happens every single day of the week. How do you stop it? I think federal law enforcement has to get much more involved. They are, but they're not. I think it's just too daunting a task to try to stop all of it. When people have their identity stolen or they get scammed overseas, the FBI will tell you, there's only so much we can do. They accumulate the information, and then they maybe go after them if they get a lead and they can find out where that person is, whether it's Russia, Belarus, North Korea, Vietnam. They're all over the place, all over the world, some in the United States. But the bigger scary part is that you're on camera. You can assume you're on camera at all times. Not at all times, but much of the time. And there are steps you can take to protect yourself. If you've been the victim of this, you can contact a lawyer. There are cyber specialist lawyers now. There are more and more of them who deal with things like identity theft, theft of image and likeness. We've talked about that in the prankster videos. But then there's the experts who tell you what to do when this happens. There are also services, like I believe he called it Aura, that you can consult to make sure that you're safe. It sounds like we're in a very complicated world. It used to be a pretty easy thing to get through the day. But now to protect yourself, it sounds like you need experts. And this is one area where you may. I don't even pretend to be an expert in protecting against this stuff, and maybe that makes me vulnerable, makes everybody vulnerable. But if you can find a service, use it. And if you have passwords, use the passwords and try to come up with passwords that are somewhat sophisticated and not easy to crack. Because keep in mind, if people are gathering data about you, they're gathering your kids' names and this and that is more often than not where people get their passwords from. And they have algorithms that help them put together different choices for your passwords. They'll keep running it and keep trying to get into your accounts. Now, most financial accounts, they have systems set up that if somebody tries 3, 4, 5 times in a row to get in, and they keep giving wrong passwords, it'll shut it down and not let them in, but not all of them do. And these systems are very sophisticated. So, folks, all I can tell you is protect yourselves. To whatever extent you can, change your passwords on a fairly regular basis. Go in and change your passwords. Try not to write it down right on the top of your desk, especially in an office, a public place. But, this is one of the problems I have because, us old farts, that's what we do. We write things down because we forget them. But keep in mind, you can change your password every single time you log on to a site. It's just you can't use the same one again. I've done that plenty of times with many accounts. So, all that said, it's a very interesting video. Told us a lot about what is out there. Although this is just the tip of the iceberg. We'll do a future video about the dark web and how information is shared. But this in and of itself is creepy and scary, and we want to avoid it. So protect yourselves, and it's worth it to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. I hope you hit like and subscribe. I hope you leave comments. Look forward to hearing from you folks. Signing off for Postpolic, this is Dave Epstein, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.